The museum director sat down with George Frankodakis, co-owner and manager of Immortal Masks, to learn the hows and whys of the company's mask-making process. George, when you meet someone from outside of Hollywood, how do you describe what you do?
I start simple. I say I make masks, and then I go from there. I make really complex masks, or I make the Mission Impossible masks. But mostly I kind of start about what we do and how we started and film effects and how we kind of translated what we eventually kind of took from film effects and brought to the mask world.
What is your professional background?
It's all over the place. My background's in film production, actually, and I was lucky enough to get to spend a weekend with an effects artist by the name of Stan Winston. This is shortly after I got out of film school. So I had a really keen interest in special effects, but no background in it. After spending a weekend with me, Stan was the guy that said, George, you could produce an effects company just like you could produce a movie. And it actually started a pathway into going into special makeup effects.
Which roles do you and your partner Andrew play at Immortal Masks?
We all kind of bring our strengths and weaknesses, and Andrew's an artist, straight up. Like, he is a physical, hands-on artist, and I'm a film school guy that was that went to school for producing. So I'm kind of the business end of the art thing. A good producer is a guy that can put a team together and work with them. I'm also pretty good with the customers, so I kind of handle the customer side of the industry and our special clients, our film clients. Andrew is the artistic brain behind the mask that you see behind me.
The Immortal Masks design process begins with Andrew and George exchanging ideas for new characters or fielding ideas from their design staff. Once they have agreed on a character, a sketch of the mask is prepared, and one of the sculptors creates a life-sized model in clay.
Perfect.
Andrew Freeman, co-owner and founder of Immortal Masks, sculpts as well as designs the models. With the model finished, a hard foam mold in a plastic shell is then cast around it. This mold will serve as the template for future mask production. The company has developed a very large repertoire of masks, each with a unique permanent mold. Because the masks are hollow, there must be outside pieces for the exterior appearance, and inside pieces to represent the wearer's face, or in this case, arm. The mesh will reinforce the soft silicone mask and make it more resistant to tearing. With the mold prepared, the silicone composition must be mixed. This is a complex chemical process requiring both precision and timing.
Perfect.
The silicone composition needs to be condensed in a high-pressure vessel to remove bubbles. Any bubbles risk distorting and weakening the mask. The silicone is carefully poured into the mold, with vent holes to allow the air to escape and to indicate the depth to which the silicone has sunk into the mold.
What's special about silicone as a mask material?
Silicone's a substance that is skin safe. We use platinum grade silicone, and it works kind of like skin. It's a second skin material. It's a two-part system, and it allows for that stretchability, that translucency, to move and work like your own skin.
Armor, horns, and other hard parts may be molded from resin rather than silicone, but the process is largely the same. Once the mask has dried sufficiently, tags and imperfections are removed. The seam and patch department catalyzes small batches of silicone, then adds a ground silica filler to thicken it to a paste. The paste is then applied to blemishes, small holes, and trenched seam lines to fix any minor blemishes or imperfections from the casting.
Perfect.
Sponges and brushes dipped in a chemical solvent then smooth out those areas, or to add the texture to match the cast mask, or, as in this case, glove. The finished masks are then cured in a warm, arid room until they are firm enough to handle throughout the painting stage. The masks are then painted using a variety of techniques, primarily airbrushing. Because silicone sticks to very little except silicone, the paint itself is silicone-based, and it must be applied during a narrow window before the mask is fully cured.
Perfect.
The painter mixes the paint, then applies a base layer to set the dominant color. He then applies other colors to create texture, detail, and patterns. Veins, spots, wounds, and other details demand precise work. The painting process can take several days, depending on the size and complexity of the mask. Body masks such as this one are especially demanding due to their large surface area. Notice the veins being painted on based on the artist's memory of human, or in this case, monster anatomy. When the paint is almost dry, a chemical is applied to make microscopic abrasions in the surface, creating a matte finish. The chemical is powdered sugar. The sugar is then washed off, leaving a dull surface finish. If the mask will have resin horns or hard teeth, these are now glued on. For masks with hair, a wig may be glued or riveted onto the mask. Sparse hairs are individually punched into the mask to maximize realism. This is the last step in the mask making process. The finished masks conform to and move with the wearer's face. The company's team of designers and fabricators take pains to make every mask as hauntingly realistic as possible.
About how many masks does your company produce every year?
Well, design-wise, we hover in the 30 to 35 new designs per year. How many masks actually we make per year? Thousands. Yeah, we're doing thousands of masks right now.
Who's your main clientele?
God, I mean, when we first started, we kind of found the haunted attraction industry, which now I have to just call it the attraction industry, because it seems to me that it's become a very global year-round thing and not necessarily limited to Halloween. But Halloween was definitely our first, then collectors, and as the word kind of got out that there's these guys out there that make these masks that move with your face, I think all the other little versions of me that were out there in the world that went, wow, I can own that, started finding their way to us, and so now just anybody. I mean, we sell the masks online, but going back to to where we started from film and television. Film and television's found their way back to us, so we do a lot of work with TV, with feature film, music video, live theater. We've done celebrity disguise masks. I've worked for governments. I've done all kinds of interesting jobs. Yeah.
What is it like making masks and effects for high-profile Hollywood movies?
We get to work on some fun movie stuff. I mean, like I said, we about 8 years ago, Andrew and I were working for companies that predominantly did effects for film and television. And when we decided that we made something that was cool, couldn't we just sell it to anybody? Our focus wasn't necessarily on that anymore. And then as what we did started catching on, and we started having a client base that included pretty well-respected directors and producers. Of course, some of those things were popping up, film and television. We're like, hey, could we use those guys that do that mask thing? And there's a couple projects I wish I could talk about right now, and I can't even. But as a kid growing up, it was like a dream to even be part of that. And so so we got some opportunities to really make some cool things for film and television now.
What influenced you to take up this line of work? Was it love of fantasy and horror movies, a fascination with Halloween, uncontrollable childhood nightmares?
All of the above, except for maybe the nightmare part. I was a Halloween kid. I was the kid that planned out my Halloween costumes in July or April. My parents to this day, and if you ask them, I'm a guy that was a science major at one point in time, and I was going to go to dental school. And but if you really go back and you ask my parents, what is it that George was going to do, they'd probably say either something to do with masks or movies. And I got a chance to kind of do both. But yeah, definitely, it was a love for. I rooted for the monster in the movies. I was a Predator fan. I was an Alien fan. I was the Monster Squad came out, and that just cheered for every monster in that movie, and so I think that's definitely played a significant role. The guy in the rubber suit, that was the thing that always appealed to me, and I think as a kid, I wanted to, I was the one that watched the movies and was like, how do I get that? I want that. So it makes sense that I'm doing what I do now.
So, as a child, you would see a monster and ask, how can I get that in my room? Not, how can I keep that out? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I wanted to be that monster. Like how do I get, somewhere down the line, I knew that was a suit, like suspension of disbelief thing, but I wanted to own it. I wanted to dress up like that. So now we make those things.
Growing up, what visual artists influenced you and Andrew the most?
God, for me, I mean, it's funny because I mentioned Stan Winston, and I think that Stan was always had an impact on me. And then I started reading about his artists, or guys like Steve Wang, and then contemporary artists like Ian McCaig that used to draw for Lucasfilms and for the Star Wars universe, and then comic book artists such as obviously Todd McFarlane. And those were the guys that had impacts on me as far as artwork went. And then I was a fan of movies, so then there was the directors and then the actors that went along with them. So.
And H.R. Giger?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody did. I mean, I fell in love with Giger though in a different way. I mean, I think some people, they found him, as part of the whole aliens thing. I did too. I mean, I think I was introduced to him by that, and but I was more in love with the actual alien design, the physical element of the alien, and of course I'm a fan of his stuff too. I mean, and then like Bernie Wrightson and Franzetta and things. I was a fantasy kid too, so like growing up with those iconic Conan designs and stuff were like a big thing for me.
At what point did you realize that making horror and fantasy masks could be a profession for you, a career?
I'm still working on that one. Because I get to do exactly like I wake up and I get to go do what I want to do. I mean, there's no other place in the world I'd rather be as far as work goes. At the end of the day, we're making monsters, and like for a guy like me, and I speaking for Andrew, it's what we love. It's our lifeblood.
Immortal Masks is expanding in both its cast of characters and the types of products it makes. Where do you see your company in 10 years?
It's funny, we've lately adopted this new slogan. We're calling ourselves your one-stop creature shop. And I think that's really where we're kind of planning on going. I mean, originally it started with masks, which was just the head. And we're making it work generically on so many different people. And then we started moving into a little bit of costume elements, armor and things like that. And we're like, well, can we start pushing it now into, we get arms and upper torsos, and we're prototyping some stilts right now, and we have a design for wings. And so I think really where we're planning on going is exactly that thing that I was talking about as a kid, man, like that opportunity for you to go, I want to own that. Can I be that demon, that werewolf, that creature? And for, you can order it directly off our website. So I think the goal for us in that is to expand the line to a point where we're providing full creature suits and things that you would see predominantly only in film and television, but to the consumer in general for whatever need they might have. And we're finding these things ending up in conventions, or God, I've seen our stuff like online and like in dance clubs in Europe for promotion, and crazy things like that we never expected it to go to.
For more on Immortal Masks, visit their website at